All right. Welcome to
Hello.
Tea for Lunch, a weekly show powered by Arcade Studios.
Each week, we'll be serving you the top stories we're following in social media, entertainment, celebrity, and tech in 15 minutes or less. You can catch the show live on Instagram Wednesdays at about 12:30 Mountain Time, or on all podcast providers and YouTube on Thursdays. We're your hosts this week, Harrison.
And Mike. 15 minutes or less. I feel like that's a challenge these days. The last couple episodes,
I mean, we're
maybe more like 16 or 17.
We've been kind of averaging between like 14 and 17, I guess.
Okay, so
Yeah.
in the end of the day, we average out at 15.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see if this one's a longer one or a shorter one. What do you think?
I don't know. Depends on.
I feel like we can both be pretty long-winded about these topics. So.
That's true. I think, yeah, it's stuff that I think we're like excited to talk about. So.
All right. If we're going over time, then someone just smash the like button a bunch of times so we get the memo.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
What's
how's
up?
your week going, man?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. Just working, doing lots of stuff.
working?
Gearing up for the holidays. How about you?
Yeah, same. I feel like most years running an agency like ours, this time of year is really, really busy, almost chaotic. But this year I feel like it's a little better. Not to say it's not busy. It definitely is busy, and I feel like especially for the creative team.
I mean, I feel like it's very like controlled. Like
Okay.
I wouldn't say like it's like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if it would normally be something like chaotic neutral or something. I feel like we're in like lawful good territory.
Yeah, and in past years it's never been like really within the realm of control chaos. It's always been like survive this chaos.
Yeah.
So anything better than that is good.
It feels like it's like properly compartmentalized, and then there's just like a bunch of little hives doing
Nice.
a lot of good work.
Well, I think if the creative team, which is your team, the team that you're on, if you guys are surviving, then I think everyone's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. We just had our holiday party.
We did.
That was your first one with the team.
Yeah,
What'd you think?
It was a blast. It like exceeded every expectation, and
I'll tell you what exceeded my expectation was you and Carly doing karaoke.
that was so much fun.
So good.
It was a blast. I'm definitely one of those people that like I love doing karaoke because it's like even playing field for everyone to like get out of their comfort zone and have fun. And I just love music too, so it's like I don't know.
I don't know if it's an even playing field.
No, I feel like
everyone
it
on the
is.
team I
Like,
would say is like sufficiently good at karaoke, but like you and your partner just elevated the bar. For
Thank
sure,
you. I don't
for
know.
sure.
I don't know. I love it.
Everyone,
it's so
just
fun.
for context, like everyone was visiting. Karaoke was the last piece of the evening, which the last piece being like 2 or 3 hours. But everyone was visiting while people were starting to get into karaoke, and then Harrison and Carly get up there and start singing. What was the first song that you
It was
did?
Out of Time by The Weeknd.
Yes, by the weekend. And it was like as soon as you guys started in on the verse, suddenly everyone stopped visiting and just like focused on you, as if we had hired you guys as the team. It was great.
I mean, like, I don't know. My focus was just like, I picked the song because I was like, oh, I really like this song. And then the moment it started, it was like, all right, get through it, read the words, like, do it. Like, I definitely kind of had to, like, check myself a little bit when I
Yeah.
got up there, and I was like, do I know this song as well as I think I do? But,
well,
no.
you faked it well.
I mean, everyone killed it. Like,
Thanks, man.
everyone did such a good job.
You
It was
missed
so
me doing
fun.
Bound 2.
I know,
Mitzi.
and I was prying all night to try and get you on stage,
I
Mike.
know. It took a while. I had to warm up to it, but eventually I got up there.
Well, I'm proud of you.
I know there's mixed feelings about Kanye West right now, but that song just doesn't get old.
It goes.
It has no expiry date.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah, the holiday party was a blast. Shout out to Mitzi and the party planning committee for making it what it was.
Absolutely. It was great.
We're going to run it back in April for our 5-year anniversary as a company, so not too long until we get to do it all again, but yeah, that'll carry us through for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Should we get into the first bit of news?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll take this one because it's more boring than the rest of them. We're starting slow and working our way up, but you got to know what's going on with Meta. So Meta is threatening to remove news content from Facebook in the U.S. And no, this isn't them trying to improve humanity by removing news from your content feeds. This is just them not wanting to pay money to news sources. So they've said that they will be forced to consider removing news from the platform if Congress passes legislation requiring tech companies to pay news outlets for their material, which seems like a no-brainer. You know, like we pay creators, we pay independent like content producers and stuff like that, but for some reason news outlets just miss the boat on that kind of stuff, and Facebook or Meta, I guess, doesn't want to change the way it's been going. But essentially, if the Journalism Competition and Preservation Act gets passed, it would allow news companies to negotiate with social media platforms over the terms for their material to appear on sites. Meta says they'd rather pull news altogether from their product, their platform, than to submit to government mandate negotiations. When you say it like that, it sounds like this noble cause, especially in light of the last few years, but it just isn't. They actually recently went through a similar process in Australia where they temporarily blocked news before coming to an agreement with Australian publishers, which that means that essentially they tried to pull out, but then in the end ended up settling and agreeing to pay publishers. So not sure if this is just kind of like a flex to try and influence the process, but in the end they'll cave. But I think it would probably improve things if there was transactions being made, because it would just clarify who the credited news or the credible news sources are compared to all these like independent, biased people sharing misinformation. Hot take, I know. But.
No, I mean, yeah, I feel like it's definitely one of those things where, you know, journalism has shifted so drastically, and I guess like what's considered journalism now has like shifted so drastically, that the credibility thing is like really, really important. And I feel like at this point, like especially with the last like few years, like I think more crucial than anything. So I agree, like it doesn't necessarily seem like kind of be on the face of it like the most like noble cause, but I definitely like align with, you know, kind of putting some barriers in place to like make sure that the credibility's there, and
right.
Yeah, that people are essentially being like held accountable like by the dollar.
Yeah, and I wonder, even as we're talking, I kind of wonder if there's like a reverse approach along these lines that might work better than just like meta labeling what content they think might be misinformation or inaccurate, because I feel like that feels like censorship, and that's something that matters to a lot of people. But I wonder if there was like a reverse approach where, similar to actually paying credible news sources for their content, there's actually kind of like a badge of like an accredited news source that affirms the type of content that is verified.
Like a Twitter blue that actually means something?
That you're not just paying $8 a month for, yeah. But that actually means that it's been vetted, like you've been vetted as a news source,
yep.
Even if like not every single story is vetted. And then that's a verification status that you can lose potentially, if you breach it or something like that. I don't know. That feels to me less like censorship, because it's more of like a positive affirmation versus like a negative flag on content.
And I feel like it kind of like takes a term that we like see every day, terms of use and like terms of service online, and it, you know, I think kind of like puts a little bit more like bone marrow into it.
Ooh, bone marrow.
You know, like in the sense of just kind of, you know, we hit agree on like so many terms and conditions throughout our lifetime. But like having a business do that and being like, if you actually don't agree, or at some point like you start providing us like non-credible news, like this is something we can revoke because you're going against our terms of use, where I feel like just as like regular social media users, terms of use and terms of service is like not something that we like, I think, put a lot of thought into when we're using a platform. But I feel like for a business, having that kind of outline and penalty, even like if it's not followed, I feel like could kind of like shift to I like it. I like it. And I feel like maybe the reason Meta hasn't done that is because it would maybe limit their ability to actually have like political influence in the news that is circulated. I don't know if you've seen the Twitter files, and we're getting way off into the weeds on this, so it'll probably be a 17-minute-er, but 30.
I don't know if you've seen the Twitter files that have been leaked since Elon took over on Twitter about like all the political influence that during the Biden election, and it wasn't just the Democratic Party, it was also the Republican Party, but internally Twitter employees and especially the leadership just skewed so heavily to Democrat that there was inevitably more Democratic favored content on the platform. All that to say, these social platforms do get influenced by political parties, and there are like inside tracks to like deplatforming certain content, and then also like accelerating certain content in favor of specific narratives.
Totally. And then I think that's kind of why online we see such like a fast and like intense pendulum swing to like the other end, because, you know, it feels like so many things are under the pressure of like this one thing, or like kind of like under the viewpoint of this one thing, that the anti that just like kind of like busts out of the woodwork instead of like, you know, seeping out. It's like,
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
What a crazy world.
Yeah.
You want to go to the next one?
Let's do it. So, an open AI platform called ChatGPT is taking the internet by storm. OpenAI recently unveiled ChatGPT, which is a bot that can help with tasks from writing to coding and more things. People have been sharing their different pieces of copy or code written by the platform to their social media, with both positive and negative reviews. Some have used it to write full emails, software, and things like that. But there's also been a lot of concerns raised about the bot, showing like a lot of anti-human, racist, or sexist biases. Overall, I think it opens up the question about the future of AI in all industries and what our utilization looks like.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Man, I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
I think it has a lot of potential. Of course, it is early, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of us grew up first without internet, and then with internet becoming a thing, and then without search engines like Google, and then Google and others becoming so influential and so valuable. And then, of course, like the dawn of social media and stuff like that. So now I think AI is another kind of one of those waves, along with Web3 and crypto and like decentralization and all that stuff. Not that it's at all the same, but I feel like it could have similar levels of influence on the way we consume and also produce content and information. And I think, to clarify as well, we're talking about ChatGPT, and the GPT refers to a specific type of AI language that I think OpenAI was the one that developed. Initially, GPT-2 was the previous AI language, and it was less polished. It was less populated.
Yeah, it was definitely more of like just kind of a beta exploration.
Less historically accurate, stuff like that. And then GPT-3 is the newer version of that, which kind of launched in tandem with ChatGPT. That was like one of their new products that they're experimenting with. And they got 1 million users in 5 days.
Seriously?
Yeah, like there's been a serious
That's
uptick
wild.
in use. But I think we're all just curious at this stage, and we want to try it. Some people that don't do the research will likely be like, "Oh, AI is going to replace us all. None of us are going to have jobs, and robots are going to take over." And that's just not the case.
I feel like that conversation has kind of been happening at different stages, like since the inception of the internet. Like everyone kind of sees a new technological advancement, and they're just kind of like, okay, is Y2K happening now, or is Y2K happening now? You know, so I feel like that conversation is inevitable, but you know, I think it's like AI is something that I think we're bless you. I think it's something we're harnessing right now in like a pretty cool way, and I'd say just given the history of the wild west of the internet, I'm happy it's being like harnessed in a more like responsible way.
Yeah, me too. And I think inevitably with anything new like that, you're going to have people that exploit it or like try to take advantage of it, use it for maybe less than positive outcomes. But the general public, the masses, will likely find really interesting ways to benefit from it. Yeah. And I, even when you're talking about how like things have changed at different times, I was remembering that I was doing some research a while ago. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been on the negative effects of social media, because of course social media is a big part of what we do. And there was writers that were kind of pointing back to different eras in time, like centuries ago, even like thousands of years ago, when like reading first became more of like a mass activity, where previously it was more like reserved to the scholars, like the few scholars in any village or city. And even then, reading was perceived as something that was going to like pollute people's minds and like make them less like social and like stuff like that. So it's crazy because we would never think of reading as like a negative thing. Now that's like where you get knowledge and education.
It's like so fundamental for sure.
Exactly. It's how you learn. So I think the way that people view things when they first kind of bubble to the surface versus the way we view them centuries later or even thousands of years later, I think we'll see all of the positive benefits as we go.
Yeah, I mean, like also kind of in a way, just to like piggyback on that point too, like again, just given the different like eras that the internet has gone through, not only is it understandable for people to kind of be a bit more skeptical, but I think I also like prefer it a little bit. Like I think I prefer like something new being met with like
Caution.
yeah, caution and like being a bit more inquisitive, you know, and not necessarily like just kind of like jumping in head first, because I think there's like so much that goes into developing AI and things like that that, you know, we on a surface level don't necessarily understand. And I think just kind of having that in the back of our head while we use it will have, I think, a more like general population of society use it in a more like safer way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think we should speak to like the bias concerns as well.
For sure.
Just the way it works, at least GPT, is that it essentially scrapes the internet and like content repositories and stuff like that for the information and for its own like machine learning. So inevitably there's content on the internet that has biases and is like racist to its core and stuff like that. So we're going to end up with some samples of racist or even like sexist or discriminatory content that leaks in. There are safety parameters in place for like extreme cases, but I think really it's a matter of people using it responsibly and also
Totally.
not just taking whatever the AI bot spews out in the form of an article or an email or a social caption, but actually like still looking at it through a human lens and editing it and refining it to be true and accurate and also like inclusive.
Totally. And I think with AI too, it's like, you know, it's constantly learning. So it's like if it's producing something where we're like, hey, don't produce that, it'll be like, oh, okay. And then it'll like try and find an alternative or like switch direction or yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about like the technological back end, but yeah, like it takes feedback and, you know, it's a bit more of just kind of like a ones and zeros process.
Exactly.
That is, you know, we're still learning, but I think we can like get it to be like reflective of where we want to be as a society.
Yeah, and it's something that we can just weave into what we're doing. It
For sure.
can facilitate or like be a catalyst to the content that we're producing, but it's not necessarily just something that will replace people altogether.
Exactly. And I think to that point too, like one thing that I find exciting about AI is like using it kind of in partnership with the human mind and like the human capabilities, right? And like the same way like musicians use samples, right? It's like, you know, like something like ChatGPT is generating a paragraph that you can then go in and edit and you can add your own flair to it and things like that. And I feel the same way about like musicians using samples. Like it's like you're grabbing something that can, you know, kind of be a source of inspiration and then like dive deeper and like add a bit more of you and like a bit more of like what it's like what you're trying to like get as the final product.
Yeah, it's a percentage. It's not the whole product.
It's not the whole pie.
Yeah. So this is going to really heavily influence marketing among other industries. We're excited to explore how we can integrate it into our processes in 2023. One of the best ones we've seen so far is called Jasper.ai. It used to be called Jarvis, which I think is a reference to Iron Man and his AI partner. But really, when you think about it, we've been using AI in smaller samples for a long time. Like even just spell check is an AI function, and Grammarly is a popular version of that people use as a Chrome extension or just a tool on their computers. But this is just expanding that into other areas, actual content generation and rewriting and stuff like that. So the future, I think it's also going towards video creation and stuff like that too, which could be really interesting. But for now, it's just kind of like you said, just a layer, just a sample, just a piece of what we're putting together. So
it's cool.
AI, it's coming in hot.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, for the last story of the day, Complex has released its list of the best brands of 2022. This list celebrates luxury fashion labels and streetwear brands, which is fun for you and me to talk about. They've presented exciting garments designed with thought in 2022. Top of the list is a brand that we've talked about before. It's Aimé Leon Dore. They've been celebrated for opening a new flagship location in London, which if you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. It's a really cool space that I want to visit someday. They've also built partnerships with New Balance and Woolrich. They've opened a community gym in New York City, and they've worked with artists in New York like Grotesque as an example. So they're just busy. There's also some other brands that have been mentioned, of course, like Awake New York. They did a t-shirt by Shirt King Fade, which raised over $85,000 for victims of the 2022 Bronx apartment fire, which many of us saw on the news, and more. There's other brands that many people will recognize, like Louis Vuitton, for their involvement in the Tyler the Creator composition for their fall-winter collection, and then the presentation of Virgil Abloh's final collection, which a lot of us saw. There's more, like New Balance, Supreme, Human Made, Denim Tears. Which one stood out to you?
Stussy definitely stood out to me. Like, it's a brand that I've been a fan of for like a long time, and I think just seeing their growth and originality that they bring to a new collection each season, but especially with like their 8-ball and their font, like they still stay so true to them, and it's something that you don't necessarily see a lot in fashion, like on a streetwear level. Like you'll see like brand emblems being used like throughout collections, especially in like Burberry or like Gucci or things like that. But to see like Stussy kind of keep a very similar like overarching brand concept, like kind of go throughout each of their collections over like the last few decades is like really, really cool.
And what the other thing I like about them is they've managed to do it and stay relevant and even like stand up next to other like premium streetwear and fashion brands,
for sure,
while maintaining a really approachable price point. And
I think they kind of like grandfathered like a lot of just general vibes and like aesthetics that we're seeing in streetwear. And I mean, seeing Supreme on it this many years down the road is awesome. Like, I feel like I never really was like big on buying like the big Supreme drops and things like that, but it's cool to see a brand that I think a lot of people thought was going to be this massive flash in the pan for what defined streetwear, kind of seeing it like they're still doing exactly what they were doing before, like that like peak flash in the pan moment, right? Like they're just like creating really cool pieces, they're creating quality pieces, and they're doing like really off the cuff collaborations, and I think that's something they're going to keep doing forever.
Yeah, I agree. One of the ones that keeps surprising me, not that I don't like it, but just that I never really like pay that much attention to it, but I consistently see them doing more and ending up on lists like this, is Human Made. That's Pharrell and who's in it?
Nigo.
Yeah, Nigo. Yep. So I'm a fan of Pharrell. I actually was at the Glow in the Dark tour that Kanye did back in the day, where Pharrell or NERD was part of it, and Rihanna and some other people. And I had front row seats.
T-Pain was on that one as well.
T-Pain wasn't on it. It was Lupe Fiasco.
Oh, Lupe Fiasco.
NERD, Rihanna, and Kanye. But I got front row seats with a friend of mine, and then Pharrell got up on the speaker like right in front of us when he was rapping, and I got to fist bump him. So like, I like that dude. But I never really have cared about his brand. Human Made it. The sneakers were fine. The clothes are okay. I feel like I even saw that he opened a hotel. It was on Architectural Digest or something like that. So he's been busy. He's doing good things. But for some reason, every time I see that brand on these lists, I just wonder why it's there.
For sure. Like, he's definitely a tastemaker. Like, he's definitely kind of like one of my goats musically, for sure.
Yeah.
And just stylistically, like, he's always been, really ahead of the curve. But I mean, I kind of agree. Like, Human Made has a lot of really cool cut and sew processes that they're doing, but I just feel like, I don't know, if they started releasing like a bunch of blanks, I'd probably be down, because like that's definitely a bit more my vibe, is just like super monochrome, not really too much like graphic going on, but I mean, it's good work.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be a cool direction for them, because isn't he also involved in Billionaire Boys Club?
Yeah, is like Billionaire
Ice Cream
Boys. I mean, Ice Cream, I think, is Ice Cream back? Because it was defunct for like.
I think they're connected. Like,
BBC
and Ice Cream are like kind of the same.
Those were definitely two of his things, but I don't think Ice Cream's been around for like a while. I have like a vintage Ice Cream shirt that I feel like I should like unironically just start wearing again.
Should have worn it today.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think it was a cool list. It's always nice to see who's in the center of the public eye and how that aligns to what we're consuming and stuff like that. But
totally.
We'll see what happens next year.
Well, that's all for today. Now that we've whet your palate, go eat something more substantial. Cheers.
Cheers.